Roger Goodell, man, I don't know. This is when I knew he was blind to the fact of what I was going through. I sat down with him. He asked me, what is a whoopin'? It was one of the first questions. It kind of showed me we were on a totally different level. It's just the way of life. For instance, in Texas, we know what whoopins are. It was just a tough situation because of misperception. I get it. I get why. But you still shouldn't pass judgment on people when you don't know. Stephen A., like, love, or hate AP's comments?
Well, I love his comments. I don't love the timing. In fairness to him, I don't know when this interview had taken place.
Okay.
The fact that they published it now is all I mean by the timing of it. That's not Adrian Peterson's fault. I've been an advocate of Adrian Peterson actually sitting down on camera and addressing it, because I think that when people look at you, see your face, your body language, how you disseminate your information, it comes across a bit better, because more importantly, the timing would be there, the context would be more realized, and we could judge accordingly. But he exercised his prerogative, and that is that. What I will tell you, Skip Bayless, is that, you know, I've spoken to Adrian Peterson once or twice, and I know several people that he knows, including somebody who was in that room with Adrian Peterson when Roger Goodell addressed him. Roger Goodell also had an expert in that room. And in that room, the expert, Roger Goodell, did not know what a whipping was. And the expert, according to people that I spoke to, basically was talking about how kids who are prone to being punished like that are also prone to violence when they get older. And Adrian Peterson pointed out how he and his brothers are just fine. The individual in the room sat there and said, well, I had whippings, and my brother's a lawyer, and another brother I have speaks 5 different languages, and we're successful. So, this note, I think what it speaks to more so than anything else, Roger Goodell doesn't deserve to be indicted over this. But what needs to be recognized is what I believe Adrian Peterson was trying to illuminate, that it's really difficult for him to embrace being judged by individuals or a bevy of individuals in a society that have little to no relation of his upbringing, what he was subjected to, and what he knows. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be acceptable. And I didn't get the impression that Adrian Peterson was saying that his actions should be excused.
Right.
I got the impression that he's saying, understand where I'm coming from. Simply tell me not to let it happen again. Here's why. And let's move forward, as opposed to me being forced to sit down for a season, play just one game. And, oh, by the way, I got to go in court because I'm being indicted on child abuse charges, which is why it may have been, Skip, the most difficult story that I ever had to talk about in my professional career. Because on one hand, I considered the act abusive. But I repeatedly stated, let's be careful about calling him an abuser, because there's no evidence whatsoever that this was an act that was continual. We have people in our society where obviously with rape, murder, child molestation, stuff like that, I mean, that's a given. But in something like this, they still wanted him one and done. You're just hitting your kid, and Lord knows where the switch went or whatever, and they're looking at him saying, this is a continual act. And I'm saying there's a difference between an act that is wrong and something that you've repeated over and over and over again. As far as we knew from the child's mom and from Adrian Peterson, this happened one time. And so there is a side of him that it still clearly resonates with him, that he took a hit that he felt he didn't deserve. My attitude is, damn it, you deserved to be punished, because they had to send a message that couldn't be allowed. But you don't deserve to be character assassinated for it, as if it absolutely defines you. And then him to speak about Roger Goodell also speaks about something a large mass of folks within the black community find very, very offensive. And that is somebody outside of our community telling folks how they're supposed to raise their child, because
and discipline
their child. Because what happens is, when that child goes astray, you gonna come and help raise them? That's the kind of mentality folks have. And so I get where Adrian Peterson's coming from in terms of saying Roger didn't even know. I just wish the timing of this publication was more ideal and that he had spoken about it on camera where we could visually see him as opposed to it being interpreted in print, because I think something like this aimed in the direction of Roger Goodell is slightly unfair because guess what? He's white, he's middle-aged, he's rich, he's successful, he's educated. Roger Goodell may not know. And what's wrong with that if he doesn't know? If you don't know, you don't know.
Real quick, this interview took place by SI in early December, and obviously it's in this week's issue.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Well, then he definitely shouldn't have said anything right now in print.
Yeah, to that point. I don't love the point that Adrian made, but I do like it, and I respect the position that he continues to take in and of itself. I hate the timing of it. Even if the interview took place in early December, he had to know they were on a playoff-bound roll.
But that's what I'm saying. I agree with you about the time. The timing was
and
bad.
here we are on the eve of a home playoff game.
Well, we know why they printed it now.
Yeah, well, that's fine. But this is certainly a distraction for the football team. Maybe it's going to come up again, rear its ugly head again in the locker room. Everybody's got to deal with it. No good. In fact, I'm not sure it does any good for Adrian to talk publicly about this at all anytime. I get
Probably
what you
now.
mean. Yeah.
I'm just saying if you were going to talk publicly.
All right. But at some point, you admitted wrongdoing, which he did in court. Just, you got to let it go, man. We get it. This came up on our show. We talked about this. We all came from different cultures, different backgrounds. You talk about the black community, and I say, no. White community too, because I was raised spare the rod, spoil the child. Trust me. And when my mom got mad, she went out in the back and pulled what we called a switch off the tree, a branch off the tree, and whipped me on my bare bottom with it. Now, she didn't hit me very hard, but when my dad got home, he used his open hand with his, ironically, wedding ring finger to slap me in the face and left bruises on my cheek. Now, today, that would be child abuse. Then, I just shrugged it off and went on to the next day. I turned out okay. Maybe it worked. I don't know, because I wasn't a bad kid. I did some bad things early that deserved that kind of, maybe not that kind of punishment, but some punishment. But my point is, Roger Goodell came from a different place. He didn't know whooping, which is what they called it in Texas. And I think it was pretty prevalent, and probably still is pretty prevalent, that a switch is used to whip a child. And that's, again, to a point that is the prerogative of the parent,
well,
right?
I certainly wasn't trying to imply that it's only something that happens in the black community. I was just saying that's what we know.
I got it.
You know, and not only that, it's also a generational thing.
It is.
Because
I get it.
Old school, you know, like my father grabbed me. My father was a very powerful man, and my father lifted me off the ground with one hand by my neck and whipped my behind with a belt for playing hooky. Let me be the first to say, it is the last time I ever played hooky. It never happened again.
That, by today's standards, was that child abuse?
You're damn right it was. Yeah. My father would be in jail today for what he did to me, and I'm not going to tell on him too much about what he did to my brother and sister, okay? But I can assure you, I have never played hooky again in my life, and I was in elementary school. That's the last time that happened.
So are either of us endorsing what Adrian did to his kid?
Never.
We are not.
We're simply
saying
it
went over the line.
We're simply saying that when he says it was his experience, and it's something that he knew as a deterrent, it's plausible that that is the case. What happened is in this society, it's no longer tolerable.
Nope.
That message needed to be sent, so be it. But I don't believe he should, because he knows, because I was told Roger Goodell was sincere when he asked that question. Well, if he was sincere and he genuinely didn't know, what we have to do is get beyond being critical of people who don't know. If you don't know and you're asked, rather than condemn them for not knowing, how about applauding them for asking about something they don't know and want to be knowledgeable about? I applaud Roger Goodell and whoever he had in that room for asking the question. And I don't believe in December that Adrian Peterson should have brought that up, even though he didn't sound venomous towards him. How he sounded towards Chris Carter is another matter.
Okay.
And Chris will deal with that.
And when you know better, you do better, right?
That's right. And I believe Adrian Peterson has done better. I believe he's done a phenomenal job this
do
year.
I.
And I really don't believe him to be an awful guy. He made a mistake. We move on.
We're looking forward to the game this
Yes.
weekend as well. All right, this was a bit surprising to me. Megatron, who leads the league in just about every statistical category among wide receivers, is